Hi guys, MC Stu here. Today I wanted to talk about the Kelvin Timeline Intel Dreadnought Cruiser and whether or not it is still worthwhile having or using going into 2021. I'm going to go over my build on it, and then we'll go ahead and do a PUG ISA, take a look at the parse, and see if this ship is still worthwhile. It's a very popular game and ship in game. It looks great. It's always been fun. It was one of the first premium ships, if you will, that I ever got. In fact, I won it off of Kyuucontinuum stream, and I have one on my main character and one on an alt. Haven't flown it in a while. Moved on to some of the other newer ships that have come out, and I just thought we should go over, take a look at this again, and see how it performs in the state of the game today. As usual, most ships are going to come down to the build that you have on it, the piloting, those sorts of things. But there are inherent features in ships that do make a difference on how well they'll perform with how you're trying to build them. And that's going to be specialization, seating, that's going to be things like inertia, speed modifiers, and most importantly, the station layout for your bridge officer abilities. So let's jump into this, take a look. This will be hopefully a quicker video than most of what I've been putting out, just about an hour long. So I'll do my best to move through this. This isn't really going to be conceptual or anything like that, but just an overview of the build and then the run and the parse explanation. All right, so I am using a phaser cannon build on this. Terran Task Force in the number 1 slot here. Next is a emitter linked phaser dual heavy cannon. Sensor linked would probably be a little bit better. If you're min-maxing, you want to go the sensor linked. That'll boost your crit and crit chance a little bit. This does fine fully upgraded. I used to be a bigger fan of using dual heavy cannons because the firing rate's a little bit faster, a little less energy draw. But the dual heavy cannons have a built-in plus 10% crit severity. So I've started using that based on Augie's recommendations, and I think he's right with that. There's other ways to boost that firing rate, and we have some of that on this ship here, which I'll go over when we get to it. Next, I have the Prolong Engagement Phaser. This originally was from a event. It now is available in the Phoenix box stores, and it's pretty decent cannon. Next, I have the quad cannons. This comes off of, I believe, the Tier 4 Defiant. You can now buy the ship that this comes off of with the lithium from the ship vendor. It's a good weapon. I definitely recommend picking that up if you have the resources, based on the priority of using those resources. But it's a great weapon. Looks really cool when it's firing as well. Next, we have the Dark Matter Quantum Torpedo. Great torpedo on its own. I'm using it in conjunction with the Lorca console. This has a 2-piece set, which is really, I don't want to say the main reason, because it's a great torpedo, it's a great console, and the 2-piece set is great. So other than a science build, I'm literally using this on every single build that I'm doing. In some instances, I'm using the dual beam bank from this set instead of the torpedo, but most of the time it's going to be the torpedo and the Lorca console. Let's take a look at the 2-piece. The 2-piece is going to give you on a critical hit +1 critical severity for 20 seconds. That restarts the timer every time you get one as well. So, and that stacks up to 25 times. So basically, if you're getting if you're getting crit hits after 25 of them, you're going to be at an additional 25 critical severity percentage. And depending on the map you're running, like an ISA, that should maintain the whole time till the end of combat. Space set, using pretty much the standard layout for energy weapons, the colony deflector. Next is the innovative or prevailing innovative impulse engine. This is here for the speed boosts when you're activating tactical abilities, firing abilities. I've just started using this Terran Task Force Warp Core, again, based on Augie's suggestion. It looks like he's been using it quite a bit on his energy builds for the extra power settings that you get out of this. And then next, for the shield, we're using the Tilly shield. Good shield defense-wise. It's also your the buff that it gives, or the not the buff because it's just running, but your weapon attacks cause enemy shields to receive 11.5% increased damage for 10 seconds. Now I'm assuming that's for every enemy you hit. So basically, as you start to attack an enemy for the first 10 seconds of that attack, you will be doing additional damage to the enemy shields. Next, we have the Advanced Inhibiting Phaser Heavy Turret. This is a good damage dealer. There's one other one. It is, because I'm not using either one of these with their two-piece set, so the molecular phaser is also good. And the main reason for it is when you're at tier 6 in your rep, you're getting that extra 2% bonus all damage to this weapon. So I'll probably switch out what I currently have in this one and just see if there's any difference in their performances. The specs are pretty close to the same. The current one that I have, it's got a little bit more damage and a little bit more DPS. That may be because of these modifiers potentially on here. So in any case, you have to experiment with that, but I don't think there's going to be a big difference between the two, unless maybe you're using this one, the biomolecular with the one of the other second pieces of the set. Next, I'm using the Trilithium Enhanced Phaser Turret. In the past, I was using just the Omni, and I'm using it with the two-piece for the firing cycle haste. But the weapons by themselves individually also have a chance to increase your firing cycle haste for all of your weapons. So I'm also considering maybe replacing this for another one of these. So you can run the mission, what is that? Is it Beyond the Nexus? I believe it's Beyond the Nexus. Let's take a look here and just see. It's a good set you can get out of this here. Future Proof. New Frontier, Beyond the Nexus.
I need you to find out what happened to the Madison, and soon.
Yeah, Beyond the Nexus. So you can run it multiple times, and you can slot multiples of this turret. You cannot slot multiples of the Omni. Omnis are locked, so there's only a couple combinations where you can get more than one on a ship. But with turrets, that's not the case. So I may attempt to use that instead of this guy here. This is doing more damage than the Trilithium Enhanced, but if I can get that proc to go off more by having more of these weapons in the back, that should... I think that will produce more DPS and damage output, having that extra firing cycle haste for the cannons up front and for these in general. So I think the reduction in DPS from going from this weapon to another one of these will be surpassed by the increase that we get from the firing cycle haste. So basically the same deal with the Trilithium Omni. I'm going to keep this regardless of what I do in adding these. I like to have some sort of beam weapon because I am running beam overload, mainly for the speed boost, but there's plenty of tactical slots, and being able to use that, it does pretty decent under beam overload. So just diversifying the weapons where it kind of makes sense so that I can utilize the tactical bridge officer slots that I have in a way that'll be beneficial. For devices, I am using battery energy amplifiers. This is for, obviously, the 20% bonus damage for 20 seconds. I am using the Kobayashi Maru So we call that in, and it gives out passive buffs to the whole team. Next, we're using the Deuterium Surplus. This is for the speed boost. You get some defense rating, which isn't a big deal, but it's an extra clicky to get your ship moving from A to B, which, as I harp on all the time, is a big deal. Finally, for the devices, I'm using the Subspace Field Modulator, and this is a basically it's not a heal per se, but a slow me down from dying until I can kill the bad guy button if you start taking quite a bit of damage, so it increases your damage resistance for 15 seconds. It's not a huge boost, but I mean, as you can see, I'm not even using all of the slots, so I filled it with, you know, anything I could. I do generally have this in here if I have, you know, 4 slots. With 5 slots, I just really didn't have anything else to put there that wouldn't either put these other ones on cooldown or, you know, some of the other abilities I'm using, like the Nimbus Pirates Distress Beacon, which can actually be slotted from your inventory. It's down here. If I were to put in one of the other, you know, fleet support distress calls, it would put that on cooldown, and that's the one I want to use, and I can use it from the inventory. So that's why there is nothing there. All right, so as you can see, the ship is upgraded to the X. So I have the extra console slot here, and in this I am using the enhanced Dominion Coordination Protocol. This is giving me an extra 15% energy weapons damage and 8% critical severity. So both of those are positive, passive for the build. The clicky is pretty good as well. So it's 15% all damage bonus for 15 seconds, flight speed, flight turn rate, and inertia rating. And this is for the team. So it includes yourself and everybody on the team when you click this for that 15 seconds. So it's almost like kind of a scaled down a little bit domino kind of. It doesn't have the firing cycle, or, you know, maybe kind of like the DPRM, scaled down a little bit, but for the whole team. So decent console. This comes off of one of the Gemidar flight deck cruisers that is from the Lobi store. Next in our engineering slot, we have the Tachyokinetic Converter. This is here for the extra crit chance, crit severity. We have the Assimilated Module, and this is here also for the crit chance and crit severity. We have the Bioneural Infused Circuits, and this is here for the critical severity. We have the Weaponized... Jesus Christ, what is that word? Helical? Don't make fun of me too much. This is here for the phaser damage and the critical severity. The clicky, I mean, I click it, but I don't know that it's not doing much. So the clicky's kind of whatever, but passive on it is great. Next, we're using the second piece that we had discussed for the Trilithium phaser, Omni, and turret. The console by itself gives you power transfer rate increase, hull capacity, all not bad things to have. And then if we take a look at the 2-piece set here, and even though I have 3 pieces of the set, the turret and the Omni it considers them the same thing. So this is not 3. This doesn't make a 3-piece set having these 2 and the console. So it's one or the other, the console, and then if you were wanting the 3-piece, there's also the torpedo that goes with it. So you would need the torpedo to get the full 3-piece, which I do not want. The 2-piece, though, gives us 5% firing cycle haste, plus 15 flight speed. So both great things for this build. Science consoles, none of these are science, but in the science console slots, we have the... sorry, my kids are yelling in the background. The Ultimate Modified Swarmer Processor. And this is here for the extra critical chance and for the accuracy rating. Last for science, we have the 0 point console, and this is here for the critical chance. And power subsystems, all subsystems, that's not a bad thing either. We have the Lorca console. We looked at the 2-piece on this earlier, giving you the stacking critical severity. It also has the passive critical chance as well as weapons power and shield penetration. So this console is excellent. And then we are using vulnerability locators and the rest of the 3 tactical slots. And lastly, our pet, I'm using the Elite Kelvin Timeline assault drones. These are pretty decent pets. I was thinking about using the ones that came with the legendary Connie, that have they're all equipped with the omnidirectional phasers. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm interested to see how they'll compare to this particular Hangar pet. So you can see sitting still here, we are sitting at 53.3 critical chance and 216 critical severity. So not too shabby there without any buffs going. Let's take a look at our skills. Using pretty much the standard skill setup here. We're running Intel and Strategist. For our traits, again, pretty much the standard traits. If I'm doing a beam overload build or any other kind of DPS build, it basically remains the same, with the exception of if it's beams, I'm changing it to beam training instead of the cannon training. So we'll just jump through these real quick here. We have a good day to die. The cannon training context is for kings. We have anchored, operative, adapted offense, Terran targeting, intelligence agent attaché, and fleet coordinator. For the starship traits, we are using Withering Barrage since it's a cannon build. I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself. We're using emergency weapons cycle, which again I'm going to use on everything except for science and torpedo builds. We're using Withering Barrage for keeping scatter volley up as long as possible. Using the Juggernaut trait here for the extra critical chance. I've played around with using some of the other traits. This is kind of a harder one to get, and this is not a build breaker. So there's other things you can put in here, and with a decent run, decent piloting, you get the same kind of numbers that I got in this PUG run that I do. So don't feel like, oh, he's got some, this was hard to get. I didn't buy this with money. I saved up my EC, and it took me a long time, and I got it. So I realize it's expensive, but this is not a build breaker. You can do the same and kind of performance with using something else in its place. Next, we have supercharged weapons for the extra damage and critical chance and severity every time you fire a torpedo. We are using Strike from Shadows, which reduces your threat and gives you a boost to damage and to critical chance. And then lastly, we are using Cold Hearted. Cold Hearted used to be that one thing I was chasing. I wanted to get. I wasn't here for the event, and I got it, and it's a great trait. But I find on a lot of my builds, I'm not even using it. So again, this is another one where you can go another direction. You do get that, reduction of damage resistance on your enemies, and then it's also acts as a control, and so you can use it in conjunction with controlled countermeasures for that bonus. It's definitely a good combination, but on a lot of my other high-end builds, I'm not using that, and I'm performing just fine. So again, this is another one of those kind of hard to get traits. If you don't have it, you can still do very, very, very good. Okay, and let's take a look at space reputation traits. Again, these are all pretty standard. So we got our extra critical severity, our extra crit chance, the controlled countermeasure as mentioned, Tyler's duality for the extra critical chance, and then we are also using the magnified firepower for the extra bonus weapons damage. Down in our active space reputation, most of these to me are garbage. The one that I do find very valuable that I use quite a bit is going to be deploy sensor interference platform. And as I discussed in the past on some of these higher end DPS builds, there's not a lot of healing happening or building towards that in any kind of way. And so this does a really good job at getting the enemy's attention off of you. So it's more about, obviously killing them before they kill you, but if they do start to put damage, to avoid that damage. So there's not much in this build to heal myself, but there's quite a few things to heal myself with. And this is one of them. So I definitely recommend that. The rest of them you have to just play with. I mean, I don't want to say they're worthless, but to me, I just, they're on there. I clicked them. I don't get a lot out of them, I guess is the bottom line. Okay, let's take a look at our stations. So I'm not even using, this isn't even slotted. There's more tactical than I have things to put in there. So you can disregard that. It's not even slotted in my tray. Torpedo spread 2, since we're running a torpedo. We're using attack pattern beta. It's excellent ability. If I didn't have this lieutenant commander slot, it would be here, and I would be using torpedo spread 1 in its place. We'll stick with tactical. We're using chemosite lace weapons. You'll see this actually did pretty decent on this run that I did. A lot of that's due to that torpedo. The dark matter torpedo does proc this. So still worth while slotting this ability. Prior, I actually did have 2, and I was using distributed targeting here. But I thought it'd be more beneficial to get more torpedoes happening, step this down, and lose the distributed targeting, because I just wasn't getting anything really out of this. And so this combination actually worked out a lot better. We're using beam overload since we have the Omni in the back. Also, having 3 different kinds of firing modes like this, they don't cool each other down, which means that all 3 of these can act as that engine, that speed boost with the particular engine that we're using. So you'll see a lot of this stuff's kind of multi-purposed. So I get that speed boost, and at the same time I still have an Omni in the back, so I'm also getting some benefit from that damage increase output that it does from clicking this ability. And then lastly, we have Cannon Scatter Volley 2. So the ship, does not have a lieutenant command or a commander tactical. Otherwise, we'd have Scatter Volley 3. Normally, that's kind of a deal breaker for me with a cannon build. I mean, it's much better to be able to have that highest tier of that ability. But as you'll see, it still just performs very well, especially compared to other ships that don't have this tactical commander slot. And you're putting a cannon build on it, and I don't know, something about this ship, it performs very well with cannons. We'll jump down to science here. So hazard emitters is going to give me a little bit of heal. It also procs the strategist abilities, giving you some extra critical critical chance when running that. That's why I have it in my spam bar here. We have emergency power to engines, and that is there to proc a duty officer that I have, which I'll go over in a moment. I am using Ox to Bat on this, so we're running that here, and we're also running it here. We're running Let It Go. This is for the damage debuff to the enemy, mainly. It does some cold damage. It doesn't do a lot, but the debuff's decent, and, I need to fill that with something, and that was the best thing that I had. Emergency power to weapons. Always slot the highest instance you can have of this. If it's 3, make sure you have 3. If all you can do is 2, do 2. This is huge for your energy weapon builds. Lastly, I have reverse shield polarity. This is a decent ability. For tanks, it's an excellent ability with the particular duty officer for it, but in any case, this does really well, especially for that kinetic damage when you're going in between the attack cube and the gate. Running that in the run, I did kind of pop this a little bit early, but in any case, decent ability to have there. Let's take a look at the duty officers. So I'm running a energy weapons officer that will give me additional critical severity. It's 2% chance. Be honest, I'm not sure how often that goes up or off, but it's there. I don't know how there's a way to be able to track that. That's something I'll have to ask Augie about. How do you know if this is happening without running with I don't even know how you'd even try and do that. In any case, makes me feel good having them there. Next, we have a space warfare specialist. This is giving us an extra 10% all damage against the Borg. Next, this is the duty officer I was talking about with emergency power to engines. So anytime you use evasive maneuvers, runs for that 8 seconds. Once that goes on to cooldown, and I say this every time, there's some weird thing. If I click it right now, it doesn't work right away. If I wait a second or two and then I click emergency power to weapons, boom, 3-second cooldown, and it's already back up again. So very nice ability to give yourself the flexibility to get around the map. Do bear in mind that this does put emergency power to weapons on cooldown and vice versa, so that's something that you're going to need to pay attention to when you're using these abilities. And then lastly, I have 3 technicians for my Ox to Bat build for the cooldown. I really need to get a purple one for the last one, but I don't know how noticeable that'll be. But in any case, when you use auxiliary to batteries, that is giving you a 10% reduction in the cooldown for all your bridge officer abilities. All right, so let's also just take a look at the endeavors, since obviously these days that's a thing. Mine's fairly decently high. I have kind of the main ones that I wanted, you know, filled out all the way, so it's pretty damn good boost you get from this system. You know, I'm not going to say, oh, it doesn't make any difference if you don't have this. This definitely helps. So if you're low, just keep working towards it. You know, these days, I mean, I'm just doing the ones that, you know, I feel like and those kinds of things since I have some of these out. But, you know, anytime you're on, try and make an effort to complete those and build this system up, because it really makes a difference, especially if you're leveling a new tune or something like that. So as soon as you get him leveled, you know, out of the box and he's leveled at 65, I mean, you already have a good amount of boost going here. So I would definitely, you know, put some time into this. Not going to happen obviously overnight, but it starts to add up and it'll end up going a lot faster than you think. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this parse run, see how we did, and then we will go over the parse and decide whether or not this ship is still good going into 2021. All right, we're back. Well, that run felt pretty good. It's always hard to tell until you take a look at the parse. There it is. So, based just off of that, I would definitely say it's still worthwhile. I'm not the best pilot. I obviously run that quite a bit. So I think my positioning was pretty good. And there's certainly some things I could do a little bit better. I tend to kind of move around a little bit maybe when I don't need to, backing up and going forward some. I don't know why I do that, but it breaks my anchored, which reduces my bonus damage I'm getting from that trait. So there's definitely some things that I could do just in terms of the piloting side to improve on that. But 250 is not a bad run at all for just a PUG run. So pretty decent spike at the beginning. You know, I didn't have the Dominion fleet maneuvers clicky up, so I missed out on that. I also got a little distracted at the beginning, and I didn't buff up using this one here either. So, you know, I always go back and try and critique myself. How could I do better on that? But in any case, overall, it was a good run. We had some pretty decent spikes throughout the run here. If we take a look at the breakdown, Terran Task Force did very well. All the cannons did pretty damn good up front. These pets perform pretty decent. I'm still going to experiment with some of the others just to see, but again, not too shabby on them. So here's not a big gap really between those two turrets we were discussing earlier. So I really think I'm going to pick up another one of these trilithium enhanced phaser turrets from Beyond the Nexus and replace the heavy inhibiting phaser turret. Because I mean, we're only talking about what 1,000 DPS overall. But if I can get the proc off that a couple times through the run, that would be huge. Also, if we look at the attacks, for some reason, I mean, there's quite a few more attacks. I don't know why that's the case. And on the Omni, well, I guess that's under Overload because it only did 15, but outside of Overload, it probably did quite a bit more. I'll have to find that down here. But those are basically your main damage dealers. Dark Matter Torpedo did well. And what was the other thing we wanted to look at? Oh, Chemosite. Yeah, Chemosite Lace Weaponry. I was really surprised that did almost 8K. Chemosite Lace Weaponry 1. So I think most of that is due to the torpedo. And I mean, you know, if you can keep up a high firing cycle haste, then you know that's gonna help proc this more often. Obviously, like any other proc, I guess in the game, it's kind of a no-brainer. But again, pretty surprised that did as well as it did. All right, well, I think that sums it up. Definitely, we have a pass. I'm going to be flying this often still. I see this ship being an excellent ship going forward into the future for the foreseeable future. So go out there and get yourself one if you don't have it. If you do have it and you've had it tucked away in dry dock, pull it out and revisit it again. I hope this was helpful. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say about this ship and what you think, what kind of builds you're running on it. If you enjoy the videos I'm putting out, I encourage you to give me a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the channel. You can check me out on Twitch as well. And I appreciate you guys watching. Have a good one. We'll catch you next time.